Hi,
So,
Tom.
welcome to episode 6 of the Music Ally TV weekly Zoom panel seminar, or whatever you want to call it. I'm Joe Sparrow here in Berlin, and I do some writing and analysis for Music Ally. Joining us this week, we're very excited to have a very special guest. It's DJ Martin Jensen. Hello, Martin. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All the way from Copenhagen.
Yes.
And in London this week, joining us as ever is Heimdal from CD Baby. Wonderful to have you, Hen.
Thanks for having me.
A pleasure as always. And we were debating whether he's actually changed his background to a virtual background of looking like he's on a boat, or is he actually on a boat in London? We don't know. Maybe he can start interacting with it. It's Patrick Ross. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me back.
Pleasure, as always. People still joining us. And while they're still joining us, this week we're going to be talking to Martin. Now, Martin, normally at this time on a Friday, is live streaming on Twitch to about... I think the first one you did, Martin, was to 1 million people. So we've downgraded you a little bit.
Just a little.
To talk to a more, I like to say, is a more focused group of individuals as opposed to a smaller group.
We can say that.
Okay, great, thank you. We're very grateful that he has taken time away from broadcasting to millions of people to broadcasting to a smaller number of a select group here on Music Ally TV. Thank you, Martin. And what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about his experience. Wow, I keep drifting in and out there. We're going to talk about his experience and what we can learn from that in this new normal, if you'd like to call it that, and how we can move from performing live to live streaming in a music industry setting. So, wow, I'm really sort of drifting away into the background there. Now, normally we're joined by a Music Ally editor, Stuart Dredge, who generally turns up at this point to tell us about 2 of the week's most important news stories. He is otherwise engaged at the moment. I think his children are playing Fortnite at exactly this moment, and the internet bandwidth is not great enough to enable him to join in. So we've had a pre-record from Stu, and in this section, he's going to tell us really briefly, just about 8 minutes, 2 of the main news stories this week, including Warner's IPO and some new features on Instagram, which allow live streaming, and that will bring us nicely into talking to Martin. So I'm going to see if this works. This is a slight experiment, as ever, but here we go. Here is, I'm hoping, Stu's news from Stu. So let's see if this works for sure. Okay, hi Stu. Thanks for joining us as always from your countryside retreat. We have 2 interesting stories this week you want to talk about, and then one very special story at the end. But the first one, Warner Music's IPO.
Right. So, I mean, some of it, like we say, we know that it made nearly 3.85 billion from recorded music last year, or it's last year, fiscal, and about 643 million of publishing. Some of the figures are kind of telling you the scale of the major label business. But yeah, there's a bit where they say that we believe over time streaming revenues will increase due to pricing increases. So Warner is kind of saying there, we think there'll be, and they mention Amazon Music HD, so they think they're going to be like higher quality offerings that cost more. But they also mentioned Spotify's experiments in Norway to kind of add a couple of dollars onto the price of a subscription. So it's kind of Warner saying we think the price is going to go up, which is interesting, I think.
Which is because Daniel Ek, you spoke to Daniel Ek recently of Spotify, and he sort of hinted at this as well. It's sort of starting to look inevitable now that there is a price increase coming.
I think so. It feels a bit like, I mean, it's not a deliberate strategy, I think, but it feels a bit like it's being mentioned every so often so that when it happens, no one's going to be that shocked. But yeah, I mean, the point people make when they talk about this is like the price hasn't changed since Spotify launched in 2008. Like, and the other services, it's always been $9.99 your currency in the West. I mean, it's different in places like India, Middle East. So yeah, so that was that. There's also a whole section about Warner Music Group liking TikTok. They sort of say these kind of platforms, these short form video social platforms, they enable incremental consumption of music appealing to varied and often younger audiences. And that's kind of, it's not super controversial, but there is a lot of debate about TikTok. And in the publishing world, people are saying it should be licensed and isn't licensed as much as they'd like it to be. In the labels world, they have got licenses which are quite short, I think, with it. So it's interesting that Warner is coming out and saying, we think these things are important. These things are kind of incremental to the other kind of revenues we're getting. And it's not a really surprise because Warner was the first big major label to license Musical.ly, which is TikTok's predecessor, nothing to do with us. So yeah, it's just kind of backing that, but it's not a big thing, but it's like saying, we think this is an important sector. It's going to be really beneficial. And that's kind of a, flag in the ground.
Yeah.
What else? Oh yeah, there was a little tiny bit about the biggest partners for Warner, digital partners. And so Spotify actually overtook Apple as its biggest partner last year in terms of revenues. So I think Spotify contributed 14% of its revenues and Apple 13%. I think the previous year, Apple was 15 and Spotify 14. So it's not a big change, but that's kind of quite interesting in terms of the jockeying for position. The only thing about that is Apple is obviously a business that has both downloads and streaming, and it's transitioning from one to the other. So I think that's down to that. Like I think iTunes downloads are obviously declining as Apple Music grows. But yeah, and the last thing I think was the valuation. So the price of shares when Warner Music go public could value it between, like, I think it's $11.7 billion and $13.3 billion, which is not bad considering it was $3.3 billion when it was bought in 2011. So it's kind of could have grown by, well, more than threefold in that time.
Does this say that investors think that the value is going to keep increasing and they're going to be able to remove more money and exploit these licenses more?
That sounds awful, by the way. I think it does. I think investor confidence in music, and that's not just as investors in IPOs. It's about investors backing companies who are buying up publishing catalogs, like Hypnosis here in the UK is spending a lot of money buying publishing catalogs. It's about investment in startups around the music industry. So yeah, there is definitely this sense of buoyancy, sense of growth. And even that Goldman Sachs report, they were saying it's going to take a hit this year. Of course it is from coronavirus, but it's going to bounce back pretty strongly. And then by 2030, it's going to be worth loads of money. That's my technical term.
Right, great.
Forgetting the figure. So yeah, there is this confidence. And again, I think we said this before, like what this does do though, every time there's a story about a major label being worth loads of money or lots of money coming into the industry, people look at that and compare it to the artists and the songwriters question. So whenever you talk about companies or the industry being worth lots of money, it kind of sharpens that debate around how that money is being shared. So I think, and
talking about loads of money and sharing it with creators, that transitions us quite nicely to your next story, and also our guest on the show today, which is Instagram and plans to help creators make money from live streams on their platform.
Yeah, so this started a few weeks ago when someone on Twitter said a little thread saying, I've got some ideas for how Instagram could help musicians make money. And a couple of Instagram execs, senior ones, pitched in and went, we're thinking about this, we're working on this. And they were. So they announced it this week. So one thing is badges, which is kind of like the system on Twitch. Have you seen that? Where if you're a fan of an Instagram creator, which could be a musician, could be a vlogger, could be an influencer, whoever, or a business, you're able to buy a badge for like, I think it's 99 cents, $1.99 or $4.99. And that will then show up when you're commenting on their live streams. It will help you stand out. You'll get kind of show-off privileges when they're going live. And the interesting is, for now, the creator will keep all that money. Like there's no revenue share at the moment. They're going to be testing it, and you keep all the loot. And at some point, they'll introduce a revenue share where Instagram will keep a certain portion of that money.
I'm just looking here, and Martin, who's joining us later today, has 200,000 followers on Instagram. So if he can get a few of those to pay $4.99 for a badge, he'd be happy with that. I'll ask him later. But this looks like perhaps the thin end of the wedge of ways of fans wearing their fandom in public and starting to create these new revenue streams for artists. Yeah,
and it's interesting because I think a lot of people, and it's not just an old young thing. It's more of a how embedded you are in this stuff, social gaming, all kinds of things. This idea of paying for virtual items, paying for things that reflect your fandom. But some people think it sounds really weird. Like, why would you buy a pretend badge to show you're a top fan? But then certainly for a lot of young people, this is absolutely natural. They're buying skins in Fortnite that they like. They're paying for emoticons on Twitch. This is a really, really viable, thriving virtual economy. But the other thing, alongside this announcement of badges, Instagram was saying they're doing other things. They're doing advertising within IGTV, which is their long form video section. So if you are doing long form videos for Instagram, you can now have advertising, or there'll be tests and it'll roll out. They're expanding their live shopping feature, which is a thing where you can buy stuff that people are talking about in live streams, which for musicians could be merchandise, which some might not fancy because it's kind of like, it feels a bit QVC-y, saying, hi, I'm live, would you buy my hats, my t-shirt? Some musicians take really naturally to that, some won't, but that's expanding. And they've got this thing called Brand Collabs Manager, which helps match Instagram creators with brands, and that's expanding. So there's a bunch of things that Instagram's doing around, if you're a creator, musicians included, here's how we can help you make money directly. So it's a really interesting time, coinciding as it does with a lot of musicians on Instagram wanting to perform live and chat to fans and do these streams.
And talking of video calls, I believe you had an interesting one earlier this week with someone notable.
I did, yeah. I had talked to Bjorn Ulvaeus from ABBA, who not just because he fancied a Zoom call and I was the only person free. He has just been named as the new president of CSAC, which is the Global Collecting Societies body, so the equivalent of the IFPI but for collecting societies. And yeah, he was up for chat, and it's the kind of interview where within about the first 2 minutes, he told me that he's not going to be a silent figurehead. He loves speaking his mind. He can't be like a politician. And as a journalist, you sit back and go, this is going to be fun then.
Yeah.
He's like...
And he had something interesting to say. I mean, again, everyone can read this. I'll share the link about user-centric payments. Perhaps we can sort of talk very briefly about that, because we've spoken about that a couple of times in previous weeks as well.
It was a super, super niche academic debate. Like the first two things were like academic papers. Then it got to about more recently, that Broken Record campaign has been mentioning it and talking about this is a good way to go. And Deezer has been pushing for it. So it's been more out, but it's been an industry thing. But yeah, now Bjorn, he was saying he would switch to a service that launched that straight away. He doesn't think it's fair that if he listens to the Beatles, they don't get the money.
Which is a lovely image, isn't it, of him having made all his money from writing ABBA's songs, being concerned that his money is not going to the Beatles when he plays the Beatles songs. Do you think that again this is a little bit, we're sort of starting to, it's one of those things that keeps getting mentioned a lot. Do you think these are tentative steps towards maybe adoption of a user-centric payment system?
It's certainly amping up the pressure, I think. And so one, obviously, Bjorn Ulvaeus is from ABBA. Like he's one of the most storied songwriters, artists we have. So he's the most hyper-promoted to talk about it. So him talking about it brings it onto the agenda. His new role at CSAC will put him in front of governments and decision makers, and he'll be able to think. And he's also going to be involved with collecting stuff. So him saying this, he has cultural clout, but he also has sort of industry clout and political clout.
So I'll share that, the article that you've written, which is great, which came out today, with the chat here on the TV show, and you can dig into that as well. But until then, Stu, pleasure to see you, and see you soon. Yeah, looking forward to this chat with Martin, so cheers. Okay, so there we go. That was a few things there that perhaps we want to talk about with Martin, because some things that could actually affect you in sort of quite directly, especially when dealing with platforms. Martin, I think you're still muted. Hang on. Okay, no, so you're back. So we can move on perhaps to talk to Martin now on the panel, but we can talk about some of the things that Stuart just talked about as well. Well, Martin, let's introduce you to everybody. You've over 1 billion streams on Spotify alone, which is pretty good. Remixes for Katy Perry and Ed Sheeran. That's pretty good as well. Number 45, I'm reading straight off basically your Wikipedia page here. Number 45 spot in the DJ Mag's Top 100 DJs poll, and you're normally DJing on stages, sort of Lollapalooza, Tomorrowland, and all over the place, in front of enormous crowds. But when coronavirus hit, you couldn't do that. And so you've partnered quite quickly with Twitch to stream regular every 2 weeks, is that right? TV shows?
Yeah, like I'm doing the concept Me Myself Online every 2 weeks, but I'm trying to keep up the streams through the weeks that I'm going in and playing some Counter-Strike or just sitting and talking to the audience on Twitch.
Right. So I mean, you just for context, your first show, which was a 5-hour DJ set, from the center of the National Stadium in Copenhagen.
Exactly.
Which pulled in almost 1 million viewers in total across that time. And then the second one you did, which was only 4 hours long, just not quite as big. I watched some of it, and you were surrounded by giant aircraft in the national airport, in the hangars, and broadcasted to another huge audience.
Yes.
So in that sense, you're a very modern performer, because you're not only putting on these large shows and streaming them online, but you're also interacting with fans in a completely different way from how people have done in the past on Twitch, by playing games and talking to them. And when you do, and the one you did last week, you were on top of a tower in the forest, right? Yeah. And it was raining, and it was still a great show.
Thank you.
and I definitely recommend that. I'll put the link in the chat room for you to check out. But it's essentially you are DJing and communicating with the fans at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, can you sort of tell us how, from a sort of the perspective of the coronavirus has just hit and it's completely changed your 2020. Yeah. How quickly were you able to sort of move towards doing things like that on Twitch? And how did you do it?
I would say the first couple of weeks or something like that, I was actually breathing. Like, I catch my air. Like, I've been touring like insane in 19. So that I could get 2 weeks off, I was like, woo, oh God, my bags under my eyes disappeared and I started looking normal again. And then after those 2 weeks, I was just having depression like I've never had before on my couch. It's like, it's never gonna happen, and just everything is over, And then my team and I, we actually went for, did we go for dinner? I think we went for dinner, and then we start talking, what can we do? Like, we need to do something. And then we like, okay, let's do some live streaming. And then we start live streaming on Twitch, because that is a pretty cool channel. And I just literally just started with doing, playing a DJ set just behind me actually. And it went super well. Like, I think we got 8,000 viewers in that one alone. So there's just from the get-go, shared on Instagram and start playing. And then I did it 3 times more. And then I could see people were there that was entertained, because what I do, I'm having my iPad in front of me so I can read the comments everybody's texting me. And if I have time for it, I pick out a comment and then I read it, like I answer the question. And that is mostly how it goes. And then I start thinking like, but if I'm gonna do this every Friday or something like that, people have seen my studio now. Yeah, it's a cool studio, but if you want to entertain people for multiple hours, you can see that every single award show that's going on Earth, they're not the same. They're changing the setup every time. And I also want to change the setup, because I really love the whole live in it. And then me and my team just sat down and we were like, how can we involve in this? And then I called one of my friends that had a phone number to the National Stadium. It's like, and then I called them up. It's like, hey, can we come and play next Friday? And he was like, yeah, why not? And we're like, oh, that went easy. Oh, okay. So like, we set it all up on Friday, and 7 days later we did the show.
Wow. So you moved pretty quickly from as you described it, feeling incredibly depressed on the sofa, exactly, to DJing from your room there to the center of the National Stadium in Copenhagen. That's pretty good. And so you must be pleased with this, how quickly that grew and changed. But I think one of the key things there you were talking about, by the way, talking of questions, if anybody watching has a question, you can hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and Patrick, who's on the boat, will read some of those questions out. So if you have a direct question for Martin about the realities of live streaming, how do you book a national stadium? We'll talk about that in a minute. But any questions about live streaming and interaction, please do ask, and we can put them to Martin. But Martin, tell me about that, because this is something quite, normally when you go and DJ somewhere, you're not chatting to the crowd while you're doing it. You're performing, but you're not sort of answering questions and talking to people. Are you?
You are, because the way you have to interact with your crowd, you can see the crowd. If you're playing, let's just say we're going and playing a house set, and you can see this house set is not working at all, then you need to change it to another genre, because people are not reacting to the music. there's just another way of communicating to the people. I'm still standing on stage, and like, if I'm telling the crowd to say, put your hands up, and everybody's standing with a hand in his pocket, it's like, I'm probably using the wrong language, or they don't understand me, or I have to just shut up and play. So, and the same is this is just 10 times worse, because I cannot see what's happening home in the living rooms, but I still can because I have the chat. So I'm speaking to the chat all the time. So I can get people to interact with me with, like I said, if you're hyped for this venue tonight, let me see everybody text okay in the chat, because that's super easy, just okay and enter. So that is a lot of things I'm trying to like get people to interact in the chat, because otherwise it will be like, you know, you're sitting and watching a TV series and suddenly your phone is coming up and you have a message you're entering on, and then you're losing the connection with the TV series you're watching. But if you're seeing something live and I'm actually talking to you back home, then it's working 10 times better.
And you're getting feedback from fans. You know, do they really enjoy that two-way interaction with you as the
I
star?
really do. Like, I also believe that is why we have that many viewers.
Yeah, and because I've watched some of these shows, and you're working really hard to do that communication throughout, even when you're on top of a tower in a forest and it's raining. You know, you're really doing it.
It's stormy.
Yeah, it was stormy. I was worried for you at one point when the wind picked up. When you made that decision to go to the National Stadium, and then you saw, you know, that's the show that you did a 5-hour set, and over that 5 hours you had 1 million viewers, which is huge. When you knew that it worked, how did you immediately think, right, I'm going to do another one, or did you start thinking about how perhaps you could use that to sort of grow into a different community, or what was the thinking there?
Like, the thing is, Twitch is a new community for me anyway. Like, and I was looking, like, in all the platforms we were like, should we go for Facebook, for Instagram, for YouTube? Where should we stream live to? We're also talking about TikTok. But again, that is not the media. You're going and sit. You're not. If you go to Facebook and you see a live video on Facebook, you're literally gonna watch it for 2 minutes, and then you're gonna start scrolling because a new post coming up. If you're on Instagram, you have 3 seconds before, like, if it's not interesting enough, you're moving on because on your phone. But when it's Twitch, you can put it on your iPad, your television, your computer, whatsoever, and you can still have it in the background, but you can still like be interacted with it. So that was the reason why we chose Twitch.
Yeah, and to over a 5-hour period of you DJing,
yeah.
People are sort of, I guess, they're bringing their attention in and out, but it's happening in the background, and they can come and leave you a message and carry on and join in at moments. Perhaps I'm just going to jump across to Patrick. Patrick, you've worked with artists building campaigns from the marketing perspective on, for example, TikTok, which is not necessarily live, but it's interactive in that way. Well, from an artist looking for a sort of growth perspective and marketing, what do you think are the advantages of working with things like, with platforms like Twitch to connect with people?
Sure. I mean, I love the fact that Martin just said it was a new audience for him, which I think kind of shows the power. We've talked about a lot of people that were already on Twitch, or people that were trying to like move onto this platform as a new platform. But it seems to be, and it's something we've been saying, but actually hearing it confirmed, of actually having an audience and migrating them. I think that shows just the power of what your audience is, that you go, hey, this is where I'm going to be doing this. I love everything you just said there, Martin, about, you know, and I'm feeling the same thing. One night, the other night, my phone went with 4 different people live streaming. And like you say, you open it up and it's someone DJing, it's on your phone. I had music on and it's not a great experience. And I think that you've really nailed everything that he's just said there, is what artists need to be thinking about. And, you know, that is the other thing. I love the fact that you're doing these different venues, because there's far too many people that are deciding, because Instagram is easy, they're going on and they're trying so hard, bless them. But it's like, bro, we're how many months into this now? And I don't want you to interrupt my flow every few minutes to come in, lose interest, as opposed to give me a show that I can sit back, relax, actually enjoy this, feel like it's interactive. And I suppose what it sounds like you're doing is actually think about what we're missing from being in a crowd, and realize that, you know, most gigs that we would go to, it's not about being seated cross-legged, you know, watching what happens. It's the interactivity. Get down the front, get the person to acknowledge you. And I think that when we lean into these virtual platforms and understand how he can connect with audience, as Martin's been saying he's doing, I think that's where the real power is. And hopefully, you know, post-COVID, we'll have learned a lot from all of this and understand ways that people are like, hey, actually, that's a compelling offer. That's something I'd like to spend my Saturday doing, as opposed to a feed post popping up.
Yeah, we'll chat about that in a bit, about the future. Hen, we always talk to you about the perspective of working with emerging artists or newer artists who are in that growth period in their career. What does this tell us about what, you know, it must be, as Martin said, quite depressing if you're an emerging artist and you're working really, really hard to reach out and you're touring and you're gigging and you're doing all this stuff and that's taken away. How about from a starter perspective of switching over to, is there any people this might not suit, or is this for everybody?
Do you know, I think it's a suitable medium for most genres of music and most types of music. I think there's a lot of benefits to it in that, you know, it's a way more environmentally friendly thing to be doing. It's a much more cost-effective thing for younger artists at the beginning of their career, so they don't have to schlep across the country in a van that they've hired and they need to bring equipment, etc., etc. They can be in one place and they can reach a far bigger audience. And I think, and also in terms of like more niche genres where potentially your fans are more spread out, I think there's a huge benefit to this because you can reach a much greater audience.
Mm. And Martin, you were saying that since you started broadcasting the big gigs, but then you've also been playing games on Twitch in between to sort of keep that audience alive, if you like. And that was something you weren't doing before, but you started to do? Is that right?
Yeah, like we have been talking about Twitch for like forever. My manager, he's also managing some esport players as well, and he have been like kind of begging me to go on for I think 1.5 years on Twitch. But I have it in this way: if I want to do something, I have to do it right. I don't want to go half-legged into, you know, then we start doing Twitch. I'm gonna play in Counter-Strike once a month, you know, but that is never gonna work for me. And if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it full in. And that was why we chose, like, we have nothing else to do right now. We have to do something, so let me just like, screw it, let's just go all in.
I think he might be.
Looks like we're moving swiftly on. Sometimes Joe has internet problems being in Berlin.
I'm here. I think I have a neighbor who decides at 4:30 every week to stream something quite big. Martin, do you think then that it changes what an artist is at the moment? Then do you think it's, you know, an artist now is a performer, but part of your performance is not only going and playing music, but it's also going and playing video games and chatting with people on live streams and things?
I always think like you want to know artists like personally, and I have not been the best one to like try to show my private life because I've been so busy like traveling and all that kind of stuff. But I actually think this is giving me a chance for people to know me better while I'm, example, sitting and doing a 2 hours Q&A where people can literally just ask me anything and I will answer because they have nothing to do on Friday night. I have nothing to do, so let us just keep a chat, you know? It's just a big meet and greet you can do. And I think it's cool that you can use the, I was very old for 1 second. I would say it's cool you can use the internet for that. No, it's cool you could use Twitch for that.
And do you think that this is something that we're talking about life getting back to normal sometime soon, do you think that this will now be what an artist is in the future? You will perform and you will also do these live gigs and you'll keep connecting to the fans in this kind of live stream way?
It's like, I'm definitely gonna keep going to do the live streaming because it's working crazy good for me. So there's no reason why to stop. I could understand if we have a few hundred viewers when we're doing a crazy production like we're doing, that will not be worth it. But when we're catching around 1 million viewers on the stream, like imagine I have to go out and do a DJ gig, to say just a club show. There's like what 1,500, 2,000 people on a club show. Then we can do some Instagram stories. Then there's maybe 30,000 people that have watched it on some Insta stories. But here I'm reaching 1 million people, so they will be completely idiotic for our side to stop live streaming. And I actually think people are getting quite used to that every artist has to live stream now. And now it's like the art of like music and business to find a common way to, you know, because live streaming as that level I'm doing at the minute is not a good business at all, but it's a great value to my brand that I can keep. Like, I'm getting so many new fans, I'm getting so many people talking about me and my team, and we're like just having the greatest time at the minute because we can literally just see how much more we can catch with our hands. So when I'm going back on tour, my thing is like, if we're doing, you know, a US tour and we are driving in a bus, have a DJ booth with us and just place the DJ booth random places inside of the road or some beautiful places and do a DJ set there and just live stream it again on Twitch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, with that in mind, when you're, like you say, you've done a few of these now, and it's still sort of, it's early days, but you're already connecting with millions of people, which is a great thing. You must be starting to talk about how you can actually make money from these live streams. And of course, Twitch has this built-in function where you can tip, and you can buy things to sort of show your fandom on Twitch. But have you thought about other ways of, how do you go from streaming to 1 million people to, you know, making money doing that?
There's a slightly problem at the minute because of Corona, because all the big companies are seeing great opportunities, but all of them has like frozen the budgets. So there's no budgets for any of the companies that would actually normally be sponsoring these live shows. So everything what we're doing now is literally just hoping for one point that the big sponsors will come in, because you're getting show time of 5 hours for average like between 30 and 45,000 people at a time, and you can be broadcasted to them. You know what TV commercial costs normally to broadcast to 1 million people. So that is the thing we really want to like hope for the future, that we can get some good partners in that can, you know, make it keep going. Otherwise, it's like every other business. If you're just putting money into the ocean, it's never going to work.
Yeah. Patrick, perhaps we talk to you about that in a sort of marketing sense. What sort of brands would this be an opportunity for brands who are not normally associated with music sponsorship to jump in and make a name for themselves by, I'm pitching for money for you here, Martin, essentially. Are there any brands that perhaps could see this as an opportunity, as a way into that crowded market?
I mean, speaking from, you know, personal experience, my flatmate is a professional DJ and has been hit very hard by everything that's been going on. And she's had brands, probably some of the more the ones that you'd think of, alcohol and sports brands, doing sponsored live streams, and it helps. It's been helpful. But yeah, like you say, a lot of people are pulling the purse strings. I actually think what's really interesting, I mean, the branding side is obviously huge, and as people start to recover and certain industries start to recover, hopefully we'll, you know, see them wanting to jump in and monetize this audience and sponsor. But I also think we should look at the platforms themselves. I mean, you went to Twitch, as if I can go out on a limb, because it had that inbuilt revenue aspect. I mean, we'll talk maybe in a minute more about, you know, other platforms that are moving that way, like Instagrams and YouTubes and things along those lines. But I actually think that there's a big responsibility for the platforms, who, let's bear in mind, are making money off of the Twitch tips and bits that you're getting. Like, they're getting a percentage of that, right? That's all very transparent. And it's actually a revenue opportunity, I think, that we've never really looked at outside of even the branding. But think of the brand of the platform and getting them behind you. Now, that may not make sense when we're talking about, is Instagram going to sponsor my live stream? But when you actually start putting these monetary things in there, and we've seen a lot of that kind of erupting in the industry where, well, as you say, you know, a year ago, if we're talking about Twitch, we'd say that's the place you need to go play games, right? Yet in the past, well, in a year, but in the past, since March, since all this kicked off, everyone's looking at the Twitch music team. We've been speaking to them. They're getting really aggressive to actually go out and find more music. And I think we're going to see that happen, you know, across platforms. And the other thing to really think about when you look at these live stream platforms, they're all owned by big brands. Obviously, Google has its YouTube. You've got Facebook ecosystem having Facebook and Instagram. You've got Twitch by Amazon. Microsoft has one. I can't think of the name, but basically, they're all backed by the big brands anyway. So what about leaning into the platforms themselves to go, okay, let's help bring in more audience. That's what they want. Let's bring in more rev share to your platform, which is the brand, which has inbuilt sort of monetization aspects to it. And we all win if we get people paying more money there.
Martin, you don't have to give figures, but were your fans sort of enthusiastic to pay or to give Twitch bits to you as you were DJing? Was that something you were looking for?
I would actually say it's very, like, from my point of view, it's very, very difficult to go out and say, hey, give me sponsorship, and not give me sponsorship, give me bits, give me donations, stuff like that. Where it's more like, you know, you're an artist and you don't want to be, you know, begging for people. And I definitely don't want to at all. I don't have any income whatsoever at the minute. Yeah, I have Spotify, but we all know how much they pay in the end when all the major labels have taken their cut. I'm more like, if people enjoying the show and they wanna, like, you know, give a donation, if it's $1, $10, whatsoever. Yeah, we of course are super happy for it. But maybe I can keep in my apartment for a couple of months more. But you know, no, it's just a joke. But it's, you know, it's really difficult to go in and ask for money. Like, let's take example, a festival. They can actually go out and say, we need money to make this festival happen. Where the artists are more like, yeah, let's just come and play.
Yeah. So it's almost the artist is becoming the whole business in one, and you have to figure out those income streams at the same time. Patrick.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just a question sort of out of the Q&A, but I also kind of want to ask, I mean, you just mentioned streams and revenues there, and we're not going to dive deep into where that money goes. We've talked about that at length on the show, but have you actually seen an uplift at all in your streaming from people, or as it, like, have you compared anything like that, if you can share?
No, it's really difficult because I just released 2 new singles and I think 3 new remixes, something like that. So it's very difficult to see if the players come for Twitch or the live streaming, or it's just because we released some good music. I don't know.
Because the question from the audience was, and if you've got any suggestions, and maybe Hen as well, you know, obviously, Martin, you're established and that's amazing, but is there any tips that we have for, and maybe tie this into your own releases, but is there any tips we have for emerging artists or DJs taking this Twitch live stream and wonderful audience, but actually converting that audience into one that goes afterward and gets into the music that you have released? Is that ever an objective, or how can we help young artists to do
that? I just think it's a great opportunity to perform your new music. So like, if you have a new release, you have a new EP whatsoever, it's a great thing. You can showcase it. Yeah, showcase it live for the people, because if they're already tuned into your channel, you got them, you got their attention. If you're doing, like I said, you're posting on Instagram or something like that, it's super easy just to, like, you know, scroll by. But if they are already there in the channel and they want to keep watching the show, you can actually broadcast a full new song without, like, missing people just skipping it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, sorry, Ken, go on.
No, I was just going to jump in. I think I really like the way that Jack White from the White Stripes always talks about the live experience as the most kind of genuine interaction he ever has with his fans, because you can get completely clear feedback. Like Martin also was talking about before, if everybody's just standing there with hands in their pockets and not reacting in any way, you know that you're not necessarily serving them what they want in a way. And I think that's such an incredible thing that you can do with live streaming. Obviously, you can get lots of feedback on unreleased material. This is a new song, haven't recorded it yet, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? But equally, I think live streaming is also an amazing opportunity for you to talk about the music that you have released to, you know, in even more detail than you necessarily would do on stage. Obviously, depending on the genre, if you're in a metal band, you're probably not going to stop and be like, right, I wrote this song because of blah, blah, blah. But, you know, if you're an acoustic, singer-songwriter, pop, whatever, like something like that, you can actually stop and you can talk the fans through the journey of the song, and then again, see what kind of interaction you're getting and what kind of feedback you're getting. And that I think that's so valuable with live streaming that I hope artists will continue to do after this whole situation's more resolved.
Patrick, have you got a question from the audience?
I have a question. Martin, this comes from Sam in the audience. Thank you, Sam. Sam says that after having seen a number of live streams on Twitch, he's noticed a difference in quality. Were there barriers that you faced to do a quality live stream? And when you actually first started this, did you have to invest in new gear? And do you have any tips or tools or any like things that you'd say, oh my God, you need this to make sure your live stream goes really well?
So lucky for me, I'm a part-time hobby photographer. So I love like taking pictures. So for me, I had kind of the best cameras there is to get in like still photos, and they can actually be used for live streaming as well. So I had some crazy good cameras from the get-go to go. We created some overlays on Twitch so it's looking more professional. And then we did the first couple of streams. We partnered up with some companies that want to like do the live streaming part. Somebody did the lightning part. Somebody did the special effects part. So we pulled a lot of favors in the start, and then I actually start buying all the gear, like the video mixer, all the computer that have to be doing it. So it's a big package you have to do when you're doing professional. I would not call my professional live streaming, but like at least beautiful live streaming. You have to invest quite a lot of time into it, and also some few money, of course. But God, if you're going down to the local electric store and buying a webcam, it's not gonna be good. So you have to get some cameras that's gonna like, you need to stand out. It's like take Tomorrowland and take a random festival in, I don't know, US or something. There's quality production because it's a more beautiful festival, and they're putting more money into the production than example just somebody that wanna just showcase some music really quick. The thing is, there's so many at the minute that's live streaming, so you need to stand out somehow. And we're all looking at the same thing. It's basically the same music. It's house music, everything of the DJs that's going to be played. So the visual have to change, and that is the reason why we're doing me myself online all around Denmark at the minute, and we're trying to push it to Scandinavia as well.
And how you've worked with lots of partners, and you've Hen is pleased to hear that you're hitting Scandinavia. You're working with different partners, like you were on the tower, you were at the national airport, you were at the national stadium. Have they all been have they been eager to do this? Have they been very happy to have you involved? Because I guess they're all shut down as well.
Yeah, like some of them was very surprised. Like, you want to come and do a DJ set in a hangar, and you want to put flames next to my private jets? Yes. So people was like really a little bit like, nah. And then we tried to explain them what we could do, and like even when we got the national stadium, we went into them and told them our goal is to get between 20 and 25,000 people to watch this show. And the football pitch is around 300,000 euro. And we want to put flames on that one. It's like, maybe not a good idea, but I convinced them like, no, it's totally safe. No problem. Flames are not hot. And it went super well. And yeah, and then as you said, it went over 1 million. And another thing for us as well is like, we are creating a new audience. We are creating I'm relevant for the market, but also the venues we're performing at is also getting, talking to press, stuff like that, because they're also doing nothing. So if they can get talked out to 1 million as well, they're super happy.
So the things that an artist will need to live stream is a good camera, and flames is the other part that I've just picked up on.
Yeah.
Correct.
If we've learned anything today, that's the most important thing.
Flames.
Something explosive and a good camera. Yeah,
Exactly.
And maybe a national stadium if you can.
And a national stadium. There you go.
Yeah. So I presume that you've things are going well at this stage. Perhaps we can talk about a couple of the things that Stuart spoke about earlier, which is, okay, other platforms are now looking at finding solutions around this streaming as well. Instagram was the one he mentioned, but I guess there are take your pick of lots of different platforms. What do you think of the idea then? You were saying it's difficult as an artist to ask for money, and I think we can all appreciate that. And Hen, perhaps you can tell us about that in a minute, because you deal with artists and money all the time. But how would you feel about, you know, this idea that on Instagram you can pay 99 cents, $1.99 or $4.99 for a badge, which goes next to your photo on Instagram, or can be anywhere when you're watching someone live stream, it shows in the chat that you're a special fan. Can you imagine fans paying for that?
They're doing it right now on Twitch. Yeah. But that's the nature of Twitch. You know, it's not the nature of Instagram. So I think it's going to be a very difficult thing to get started. And once again, how many artists is there not on Instagram? Like, there's a lot of $4.99 dollars you have to pay to every single artist you're following. So that will just ruin people, I think. But like, again, I don't feel the other platform as much with live, especially for what we're doing at the minute. If I'm just taking my phone and doing Instagram live, stuff like that, just sitting and talking shit for like 5 minutes, great. But Twitch is just another audience for me. I like to do it over there.
Yeah, yeah. And Hen, you know, again, working with artists, we spoke last week to Tertia Willis talking about merchandise and new ways of making modern merchandise, especially good merchandise that makes your fans want to pay money to you. Is that, you know, you're talking about, again, artists in that growth phase trying to get their first 100, 1,000, 10,000 super fans. Do you think that whether it's on Twitch or on Instagram or wherever, getting them to pay for these virtual badges or stickers or whatever they are is something that artists should think about from the beginning of nurturing that kind of behavior?
I think it's a difficult one, you know. I think what Martin's saying about it being about it making sense on the specific platform is really, really important. And like introducing, we're creatures of habits, right? Regardless, and introducing a completely new aspect to a platform might be really slow for people to adopt. But in principle, I am very pro anything that will get artists more money. I would like to see breakdowns of what that actually means. If the fan is paying $4.99, how many of those $4.99 is actually going to the artist, and how much?
Initially on Instagram, 100% while they get people interested, and then I don't know what the cut would be.
But that's the interesting part, though. While people are getting interested, what happens afterwards?
I think one of the ones that we don't talk about as much, but it's there, and there's actually been a lot of people doing stuff on it. And for us in music, we've been held back. Well, we just haven't had the possibility yet. But obviously, live streaming on YouTube is really big. And if you think about YouTube, you've also got your catalog there. So you've literally got your music as well that someone can be listening to. If they subscribe to your channel, they're actually subscribing to a place that you release on. And as we've seen on a few of the more recent live streams on YouTube, if anyone's familiar with Super Chat, that's actually been opened up to artist channels. And, you know, we're talking about Instagram introducing monetization. It's actually always been on YouTube, but it's never been available to musicians. And the reason behind that was exactly that, of it's very cap in hand. It feels weird for musicians to sort of go out there being like, tip me. That said, I've, you know, personal experience, have been live streaming stuff on YouTube and seen the donate button that they've kind of enabled quietly, but all over the place. And suddenly a big blue donate button coming up. And this was for bigger artists that, you know, maybe didn't need the money coming directly, but with COVID relief, I found myself donating while watching content. And I think once we, you know, and I love the fact that, because when I watch YouTube, I watch it big screen, I can watch it on TV. And I think that's sort of the power of Twitch as well. I think it's just once we start integrating these things and opening up the options, and a lot of it is educating the fan. So from the beginning, what we've been talking about with COVID is people need to be honest right now. Some people are really hurting and they need help and they don't quite know how to say that. So it's sort of say it and explain what you need and why you're doing this. Otherwise, donating is a great way to show that you're trying to help other people. But I think the big thing in here is to actually try and communicate. And maybe it's, you know, artists learning to be a little bit less afraid of having to ask for money in some way, shape, or form, but doing it in a way that, or just giving people why you're doing this and trying to explain it and giving people reasons. And I don't want to knock what people do on Instagram. I just think it's a different platform. And I think when everyone tries to approach all these platforms the same and put the same piece of content up there, Instagram isn't as great as an experience because it's not full screen. And trying to get me to tip and donate, you know, maybe if it was something where you're like playing covers and being interactive, but I think you need to think about per platform approach and then just let the audience get used to this idea that, hey, if they really care about something, and just to go back to one point that we talk about a lot, super fans, if you get your super fans understanding, because I know everyone's got lots of artists, but there's people that really care about you and are going to tune in, those are the ones most likely to give. And I feel like we're going into more of a giving economy as we come out of COVID.
Sorry to jump in. I kind of agree, but I kind of disagree a little bit with what you're saying there as well, actually, because I think one of the things that we keep coming back to is authenticity, right? And if you're forcing your artist to all of a sudden become something they don't want to become, it can very quickly be translated to the fans as an inauthentic experience, you know? And same thing with platforms. I think artists should be using the platforms that they themselves like and that they feel comfortable with, and that resonates with them, whether that is doing a 5-minute Instagram babbling sort of thing, or if you're comfortable putting on more of a big production on Twitch. Because let's be real here, live music is not going to go back to normal anytime soon. You know, even if venues are allowed to open in 3 months, 6 months, whenever it might be, there's still going to be heavy restrictions in terms of this is the amount of space that you're going to have to keep between fans, which means that the floor plans of your traditional sort of venues, people are going to be so scattered out that you're going to be able to have like a quarter of the capacity, right? So I think artists need to start thinking about or you know, a lot of artists are already doing this, obviously, but just familiarize themselves with the different platforms and figure out what works for them. And if asking for money is difficult, I understand that.
And question from the audience, kind of off of what you've said. Thank you, John Maxwell Hobbs. Asking the question of, and this is a good one, if we're starting to pay for a badge, yeah, so we've just talked about monetizing fandom, are we actually distancing payment from the music itself? So no longer am I giving you money for your song, but I'm giving you money for your performance, I suppose, in this case. And is that at all a concern here? This is, again, a music industry audience, so that's what the questions we're getting.
The thing is, when you said like they're paying for our songs, I don't think iTunes is selling that many tracks any longer.
And are you comfortable with that? You know,
I don't mind. We're getting the streaming, but it's just more the question, like we're paying for the songs, but kind of isn't, because you literally can stream 10 million songs in 1 week if you want to, and you have time to it without paying for every single one of the songs. So in that case, if you're giving a badge for $5, you're actually just supporting the song you might have bought from the artist anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, when you look into the future, that could form a much larger part of your income. It's you're in the music industry, but you're not selling the music, you're selling the experience. Yeah. And talking about income, just one more thing then, talking about the income from Spotify, one of the suggestions has been that streaming platforms can change the way they pay artists so that they're more, you know, they're user-centric. So if I, Martin, I'm not saying this is not what I do, but if I was to stream only your music all month, you would get all of that month's €10 from me to go to you because I've only played your music. Would that seem like a fairer system to you?
Yeah, but I just think, I don't know how that would ever work. You know, that's kind of a big engine to have to sit and run that. Like, yeah, it would be great, but it's kind of what is going on, isn't it? Like, except if you're not streaming enough that month, you're not paying that amount of fee the artist actually getting. So Spotify is just earning on that, but Spotify also need to earn money because they're like having a pretty big computer sitting and running a streaming service somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's one, obviously we've talked about. Deezer's been trying this out for over a year now, and we would love to hear from Deezer how it's going. But yeah, the idea being that if Joe, as he does, only listens to your music, Martin, then shouldn't he get more of your $9.99 a month? Spotify or Deezer still take their cut, but rather than his money going to a pot and it goes to everyone, should we actually be this user-centric model, which a lot of people like, but I suppose your answer there, we're all trying to figure out the complexities around that.
Yeah. Yeah, and finally then, Martin, so what, we can wrap it up in terms of you've had huge success, doing the live streaming in the last few weeks. What are the next ones that you've got? You've done an aircraft hangar, a stadium, a forest. What's next?
So I have on hopefully next upcoming Friday. We're waiting for the police at the minute to get back to us because we're playing in the middle of a city, and there's a lot of people that can actually get around and see the show.
Yeah.
And of course we have to respect COVID, and we need to block the whole city center actually too, so we can do the live stream so people cannot gather. It's more than they're limited in Denmark right now is 10 people. But we need to respect that kind of thing. But that's gonna be in the oldest steamer boat in the world, okay, still sailing, and will be on the lake, on the sea, and then we will build the production around it somehow.
Wow. And you can keep the people away from you by firing the flames at them.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and then it's also important for me to say that all this stuff with the concept Me, Myself, Online is we're not gonna drop it. Our plans at the minute, we really want to take it to Me, Myself, Live, so we can actually take the same concept and then start playing venues at a point where it's opening again, instead of you just creating something, throw it in the trash, and then you have to create something new again, and then you have to start all over again. So now we have something, we have a huge audience for it, so why not just continue with it?
Yeah. And so really, this is forming perhaps for the next however many years your approach to touring, connecting to artists, making money, building a brand around you. It might take away some of the exhaustion of touring, maybe, because you don't have to relentlessly fly around the world. You can do it from occasionally, you can do it from just your home or something like that instead.
I will be sad about that because I love touring.
Okay, well then in that case you could do both. That's good, yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, excellent. And and you are looking as part of that to build in brand sponsorships and ways of filling that into your own sort of commercialized brand as well.
Yeah, but that's another thing. It is really to just boost my own brand of doing this, of course, and as well, everybody just sitting home and doing nothing, so why not entertain people? That is why we're in the music business. It is basically to entertain people, so why not just find new ways to entertain people?
That's a very good place to leave it, I think. So thank you very much, Martin. That was great. And I think if we've learned anything, be an entertainer, embrace change, and always have some flames on hand to excite people. That's what it takes, right? That's good news. Okay, thanks very much, Martin. Appreciate that very much. Speaking of good news, Hen, now normally we come to you at this point every week, and Hen and the team at CD Baby scrape through a lot of bad news that we're getting at the moment and bring us something good. So what is happening that is good in the music industry at the moment?
So I'm very keen on all these kind of continuing stories. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the whole Global Citizen and Lady Gaga, the massive live streaming that attracted about 300 million people across the world. And they had, I think they raised about 170 million or something for a COVID relief fund. So they have launched another initiative now with a bunch of artists. So they're running for weeks now up until the 27th of July, all these different kind of micro campaigns almost within this big initiative where you as a fan can contribute. And there's, you go to the website and there's artists like Adam Lambert that asks you to take a selfie with a specific hashtag. And all of this is to kind of encourage global leaders to come together to work out vaccines, testing, what's the best response to the situation that we're in right now, because this virus has obviously shown that the world is kind of borderless and doesn't discriminate when it comes to who it will infect. So we should be working together for this. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different artists asking for different things, and also as an added benefit, you as a fan, if you're contributing, you're in the running to win a competition to, for instance, have a coffee morning with Dionne Warwick or have a cocktail hour with Adam Lambert. And all of this is going to culminate on the 27th of June in a massive kind of international pledging summit. So it's amazing to see the artist community is kind of continuing to support our frontline workers and just raising awareness and contributing.
Yeah. Great. And again, more about interactivity between artists and fans, which is clearly the one thing we've learned from the last few weeks, and talking to Martin today is exactly the way forward. And talking of interactivity, Patrick, could you explain, just to give us a brief explanation of what Music Ally does in terms of this kind of thing and generally?
Sure thing. So hopefully everyone caught Stu's news, which comes directly from our daily bulletin. Contact Anthony for all your subscription needs. Music Ally is a knowledge company. We're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of everything that's going on right now, especially in this weird COVID world. So visit us online, musically.com, and just make sure to read what we publish, follow online. We'll have all these links in the YouTube description as well. And just make sure that you're engaging, and then please come back and join us on Fridays.
Yes, of course. Obviously, we've got people watching us here live, but we'll have a significantly larger number of people watching us on YouTube later. So please check out the other videos that are available on YouTube from previous weeks' TV shows as well. And that's about it. Martin, thank you ever so much for joining us. We're so grateful that you've stepped down from the heady heights of millions of people to just the smaller numbers that we have here on our humble show. Where can you're building this into a big brand of live streaming? Where can people find this? Where's the best place for people to find you to join in with this?
Twitch.
Yeah, on Twitch.
Yeah, on Twitch. Yeah, on Twitch.
And you're on there often, even if you're not performing.
Okay, that way. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. It's like, what? Yeah, we've been talking about that for like an hour now. No, yeah. I'm not that good being online on Instagram. I'm not. I really try to like make stories through the day, but I kind of forget it like every single day. So yeah, I have to be better at that, I know. But as Hen also said earlier, that you have to be comfortable with the media you're going to, and I'm actually quite comfortable with Twitch, where Instagram is kind of polished. So I have difficulties to like give my soul to it, but where Twitch is more like, yeah, whatever, let's just talk about something and let's see what's happening. So if people want to see it, it's just like Twitch.
Great, easy, and they can follow you there and join in, and they can even tip you if they're feeling good.
And remember to subscribe. No.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. Martin from Copenhagen, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck causing terror on the boat next week.
Hopefully, it's not gonna sink.
That'll be exciting, and we'll finish next week's show, and we'll jump straight across to watch you live streaming. How about that?
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. And Hen, thanks very much for joining us from CD Baby. How can people get in touch with you if they need you, and what can you help them with?
I can help them with everything distribution related.
Wow.
Right, that was awful.
No, you sold it to me. I'm in.
UK@cdbaby.com is the best email.
UK@cdbaby.com. Thank you, Hen. A pleasure as always. And Patrick, if people want to get in touch with you and work with Music Ally on marketing projects or anything else, what's the best way of doing that?
Just check out our website, musically.com. My email address is on there for marketing stuff. Anthony, for all your subscription needs, give us a browse. And just to point out, next week's show, I will have flames on the boat. Thank you, Martin. I've got some on the way from Amazon now. So as long as those arrive, I'm going to have flames on my boat too, but his is probably going to be doper.
Yeah, we found a way now of vastly increasing our viewership by getting flames. I think that's the Hen, flames for you, anything?
No, I was going to say, I might get a confetti cannon just to add to it,
Sure, be creative. Sure. Be yourself, be true. That's it. Thanks again, Martin. Very grateful. Have a great weekend. You can find this and all the other previous shows we've done on YouTube, and you can follow Music Ally on Twitter @Music Ally, on Facebook @Music Ally FB, and I guess probably after this, Martin, we should be on Twitch as well, so we'll make that one happen, I guess, as well. And thanks very much. I've been Joe Sparrow here in Berlin. This has been the Music Ally weekly TV show. Good afternoon. Farewell, everybody.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Martin. Bye.